Yo, what's up guys? Okay, so today I want to talk to you about how I've been making the covers for my Zine a month project, Serial Music. The covers posed quite a challenge for me, particularly because they're required a little bit of design, and I'm not a designer. Whenever I do one of these projects or make something myself, I guess one of my biggest insecurities is dealing with the design part. But I tried a couple different ways of getting the text onto the cover. But one of the problems I was having is that there are 12 zines, and so there are 12 different covers. I always knew that I was going to be using one of the image pairs for the front and back cover, and I wanted the design to go on top of that. But each zine features a different image, and it was very difficult to come up with a design for a logo, for the title, that I thought worked well with every one of the zines. So nonetheless, I forged ahead and did a couple different test prints with a few different designs and whatnot. And ultimately, they ended up just looking a little bit amateurish. So I went back to the drawing board and eventually decided the way to make a design that would work with 12 different zines was to actually take it off of the page and put it on a ribbon. So I made these ribbons, and these ribbons are basically just a really nice stock of paper that I've cut into 45mm wide strips. And I decided I would screen print on top of them. That is what I am doing now, is working on the ribbons for Serial Music Volume 6. So the thing is, when it comes to design, because I'm not a great designer myself, I have sort of one rule of thumb that I always try to stick to, and that is to have reason for your design choices. I think by having motivations or reasons for the things that you design, it just helps you make something that won't look too garish or won't date or won't look too weird after some time has passed. So what I went with was a circle logo, and I just arced the title around Serial Music, and I arced my name at the bottom, Chris Takana. And I kept it looking really as simple as I could. I would say the only little bit of flourish that I maybe have in the logo design is that there are these two little dots separating the title from my name. And I had a reason for putting those there. I really like the idea of Venn diagrams and overlapping circles. And obviously this has been a project all about making photo pairs which have overlapping meaning, or at least the overlapping of the two images can derive some meaning. And so I thought just using a little dot on either side of the logo would be a very sort of subtle nod towards this idea of the overlapping circles of a Venn diagram. Once all the design was done, I was basically able to get a screen made, and then got set up on this table that my wife actually made for doing her own DIY silk screen prints. Her silk screen skills are quite a lot better than mine, but I'm just using this pretty simple thing. You can order this whole tool off the net, just bolt it into a block of wood and have at it. So the thing I like about screen printing is it's a bit of a mission to do. It's sort of tough on the back, and it takes a long time, and it's easy to make little mistakes and things like that. So I wanted anyone who was picking up my zines to know that there was some blood, sweat, and most certainly some tears that went into making these. But I think it shows when you do a little bit of work by hand for your project that the person who made it truly cares. I would caution against maybe doing everything by hand because it can look a little bit like arts and crafty, which maybe you don't want to be too associated with that. But yeah, getting a little bit of a handmade element into your work, at least for me, it's always given it a bit more of a human and like a relatable feel. So I am making 30 zines per issue of serial music, and that means I need 30 ribbons. Forgot to flush my screen there. There we go. Like I say, easy to make errors. The next thing will be to glue the backs of the ribbons together. I use this German glue stick that has like a sort of acid-free, long-lasting, like very powerful, sticking power, I guess. I'll use a test copy of serial music to fold the ribbons and to get the place where they should be stuck. The reason I use the sample copies is just because by constantly wrapping something around the edges of the paper, it can just get a little bit frayed. And I don't want that fray to be showing in any of the actual product copies. Once those ribbons are folded and stuck together, what I'll then do is get my emboss stamp, which has the logo for the little indie print shop that my wife and I have, Ply Company Press. And I'll take that emboss stamp and put a bunch of weight on it and get an emboss on the back of the ribbon. I designed the emboss stamp to have the same radius circle as the logo. And with the logo circle on the front and the emboss for Ply Company, the circle on the back, the two circles are more or less perfectly overlapping. Again, just a very subtle nod to the idea of a Venn diagram or of these sort of like two different things being brought together to create one new meaning. Like I say, very subtle things, but it's just, I think, always better when you have a reason for your design choices. So once I'm done with the emboss stamp, the next thing is for me to make the edition tabs. So serial music comes in an edition of 30. So each issue, there are only 30 copies that I am making. And I wanted like a special way to show that. So I went to a Korean traditional stamp maker, or dojang maker, I guess. And I basically just took a translation, or I guess a close approximation of serial music in Korean. And like through some software he has, he's able to very quickly mock up a bunch of different ways that the Korean text can look, like different versions of it. So we had a quick look at that together and I decided on a font, and then he was able to basically have the stamp engraved for me then and there. I've been using that stamp to stamp each one of the edition tabs and then just been numbering them by hand at the back 1 to 30, typically with a 2B pencil. So once the edition tabs are done, I've been printing out a pair of images that go with each one of the zines, just on a small 4x6 sheet. I've been cutting those by hand as well and putting them in these tiny envelopes so that each person who gets one of the zines will have this envelope of 2 mini prints tucked into the ribbon. It's just a way that once the whole project is finished, for anyone who collects multiple copies of the zines, they'll be able to take these small prints and move them around and make their own image pairs. I just wanted to be able to give people something of the experience I had working on this project, and I thought this was the best way to do that. So that is basically the process of how I made the covers for serial music. It was a little bit of a challenge to figure out because there were 12 different zines, and thus I I needed to figure out something that worked across all of them. But by taking the design off the page itself and by putting it on these ribbons instead, and keeping it simple with motivated reasoning behind each one of the design choices, I feel like I got to something that was like hopefully kind of refined, yet still tactile. At least that's how I sort of want it to be seen and understood. So Serial Music Volume 6 is out now. If you're interested, you can grab a copy at my website along with all of the other zines that have come out so far. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good one.